Welcome to RoadTrip WDW. I'm your host, Rebecca Schlau. This is episode 2, and I'm going to read you my tip sheets. If you're part of my friends and family crew, you've probably heard me speak about Walt Disney World and planning tips before in the past. You may have even heard me mention something about my tip sheets. So today I'm going to explore what all is on my tip sheets. I originally started collecting tips as a result of different vacations. So after a Disney World vacation in the summer, I would jot down what I learned from that trip. And I just kept adding to the list every year, primarily for myself. And then I realized that some of these tips would be helpful for other people as well. So then I started trying to clean them up a little bit and sending them out. And truthfully, one of the reasons why I began collecting this data was because my memory is failing. It's like the older I get and the more kids I have, my memory just fades away. Keep in mind, a lot of these tips you probably heard before on my last podcast. However, if they were important enough for me to mention on that first episode, they're going to be important enough for me to repeat now. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first segment of information was regarding where to find more information about Disney World and Disney World planning. So I've just put on here, follow WDW Prep to Go podcast, the Diz boards, Diz Unplugged podcast. You could go to Mouse Savers email list, Facebook groups like Disney Dining, the Diz, Disney Junkies, etc. Pinterest had some great tips. Overall, I just wanted to again reinforce that I listen to a lot of podcasts on trip planning while I'm driving or while I'm walking, and to get quick detailed information on food and snacks and restaurants available at Walt Disney World, just check out Disney Food Blog, and you can even look up DFB on YouTube. The other mentioned blogs, podcasts, etc. will have dining reviews and food tips as well. So, don't go unprepared. If you want to go to Disney World, avoid last-minute trips. For newbies, it's best to start planning your trip at least 9 months in advance. Go through websites and resources to learn more about the resorts, parks, rides, dining options, experience, etc. Get an idea of what WDW actually is and have a basic framework for how the parks, transportation system, and reservations operate. Request a trip planning DVD from Walt Disney World. Watch lots of YouTube videos, and then you're going to book your resort in advance. You're going to want to have it booked within 6 months to have the best dining/experience options. Many dining reservations fill up very fast. The best times are taken on day 1, 180 days in advance of your check-in date. People all over the world and travel agents will be booking them. So it is important to wake up early on your 180-day mark and start making dining reservations and reservation to experiences such as Bippity Boppity Boutique and Pirates League on that day. Now, it's okay to plan your outings around which dining reservations you get. Go ahead and overbook dining reservations if needed too. Book more than one in advance if you don't really know which time would work better for you and your family. For instance, on one of my trips, I actually grabbed 2 Chef Mickey breakfast reservations for my family on different days. After planning and scheduling, I canceled one, no problem. There's usually a policy that you can cancel up to 48 or 24 hours in advance without penalty. If you have younger kids or not, you will need to plan for rest. The best way to maximize your day is to head to the parks at road drop, which just means park opening, and then go back for a nap or rest around lunchtime. We tend to take a nap or swim, and then we head back to the parks around 5 or 6. By this time, I usually don't have to reapply gobs of sunscreen and the kids are well rested. This is also a great reason to stay on property. It's usually easier to get back to the resorts for a midday break when your hotel is near and accessible by Disney transportation. Shut the park down, which means just stay till close and consider skipping any sort of fireworks or shows in favor of riding the rides if you're a big ride fan. However, for a lot of families, going to the fireworks or watching parades is really important, and so you want to factor that in. But for a lot of us who have short attention spans, who are more into the rides, skip the shows, go for the rides. So if you are shutting the parks down, hopefully you took advantage of the midday nap break, because kids will be much easier to manage in the evening once they are well rested. Oftentimes later at night during fireworks or close to the park closing, I can usually walk right onto Splash Mountain, Thunder Mountain, Pirates of the Caribbean, Little Mermaid, the Winnie the Pooh ride, Teacups, Dumbo, Barnstormer, Small World, Haunted Mansion, Buzz Lightyear, and a lot of the other rides without any wait, really, or a very minimal wait time. Now, rides like Space Mountain, Peter Pan, and the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train still have lines at closing. I think that we've had the best outcomes with short lines around New Fantasyland. And those are going to be rides like Little Mermaid, Pooh Bear, things like that. Let's say there is a really long line to a very important ride that you must ride. Well, you may just want to take advantage of all the shorter lines at other rides while the park is closing, and then at the very last minute, go get in line for your must-do attraction. So for instance, if you really want to ride Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, but there's an hour wait, and it's about 45 to an hour before closing, try to hit all the other rides that you really want to ride that have short lines. Then at the very last minute, like let's say the park closes at 10 and it's 9:55, that's when you want to hop in line for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. People who have fast passes that they didn't use for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train won't be able to hop in after 10, so the line will probably go quicker anyway. Also, a lot of the times the posted wait times are just off. So it may say you have 60 minutes, but your wait may realistically be closer to like 30 or 35. On our trips, late at night, we're going to hit Dumbo and the Dumbo play area. I found that during this last trip, the Dumbo play area, which is super fun and kids love it so much, actually closes after the fireworks show. So if that's a real interest of your kids, I would try to get there sometime during the day. We also like to hit the Teacups at night, the Little Mermaid ride, Barnstormer. All of these rides have such little lines that we can just go boom, 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 one after the other. Then after the fireworks, we usually go on the carousel a few times because my kids, for some reason, just enjoy a simple carousel going around and around. Several times we've had the opportunity to just walk in different character photo spots and take a picture with characters right away. Like, for instance, Ariel, the Little Mermaid, is practically open immediately at the end of the night after those fireworks. Now, if you want a picture with a character, get there before the park opens or try to get in line when the park is almost closed. You're almost guaranteed to get in with them quicker. Character meals are also a great way to maximize time with character interactions, plus there's food. Sure, they're going to be expensive meals, but if you can find a character meal that gives your kids the opportunity to see their favorite Disney character, then you're saving yourself a lot of wait time or using up a valuable fast pass. Plus you get food. It's common knowledge that the character breakfasts are a better value. However, for my family, that isn't exactly true. While they are cheaper, we're just not big breakfast people. We normally eat Pop-Tarts. Our bigger meals that we actually eat and enjoy and savor are usually lunch and dinner. So while lunch and dinner are more expensive character meals, we're going to enjoy our meal better than the quote-unquote wasted breakfast food most of us won't eat. Now at Disney World, I've been known to drop some money on meals. Whether it's the quick service or fast food locations or the table sit-down meals, we end up spending money regardless. But breakfast just isn't our thing. We could spend $120 for all of us to eat at a character meal, or we could spend $4 on Pop-Tarts for that character meal. So that means there may be about $115 between what I would prefer to eat, Pop-Tarts, versus the character breakfast meal. Now let's compare that for lunch. So let's say I would normally spend close to $45 on lunch on just like a regular fast food or quick service meal, split between 5 people, of course, and compare that with about $150 I'd spend on all of us to have a character lunch somewhere. For those keeping track of the math, my normal breakfast of Pop-Tarts would cost about $4 or $5 for my family, and our breakfast at a character spot would cost around $120. So just kind of subtract that. That means I'm paying $115 extra for this experience. I'm paying $115 for characters in a sense. And then if we look at my lunch, which would typically cost around $45 for all of us, and a character meal, which would typically be around $150 for all of us, that cost of the experience would be about $105. So $105, of course, is $10 less than $115 for breakfast, and plus with the $105 lunch experience, so to speak, I'm actually enjoying the meal much better than if I would have forked over all that money for breakfast, which I'm just not that hungry at breakfast, and so I'm not really enjoying my food as much. When I hear myself say all that, I know it sounds so complicated, but just trust me, in my head, I swear it makes sense to me. Let's keep going though. Alright, so once you're at the parks, take advantage of rider swap. Parents don't have to miss out. They can just take turns on different rides. While one person takes the small kid to the bathroom or play area, let's so to speak, the kid who can't ride or isn't big enough to ride, the other parent can ride that ride, and then they can swap out. The awesome part about rider swap is that if you have more than one kid, the parent can take the kid who's big enough to ride on with them. Both parents can swap out, and that bigger kid can just ride back to back with both parents. Now, if you have more than 2 kids, you can usually take up to 2 to 3 guests with you, but on some of the attractions that have super long lines, they may limit that a lot more. And the policies are actually changing, so I'm not sure that more than 2 people would be able to go with you. Now, if you listened, you noticed I didn't say 2 kids. Yes, you can rider swap and take adults with you as well. So let's say you're traveling in a pack, maybe with grandparents or your brother or your sister and their families. As long as you got your pass at the beginning of the ride line, you should be able to take whoever you want back with you. So if you think about it long enough, and once you actually experience this, you may see there can be some ways to tweak and manipulate the fast pass system in your favor, especially in large groups. I'm not advocating for the abuse of the fast pass system. I'm advocating for maximizing it to its potential. So a rider swap pass just assumes you waited in line. We never really had to use that feature in the past because we just had our fast passes, which just did the exact same thing. So my husband and I both had a fast pass for an attraction. One person would stay back with the kids, and one person would go ride the rides. However, as our kids got older, we have kids that can actually ride the rides, but we do have a baby who can't ride some things, so it became very, very useful. Even if the line seems short, do still try to get a rider swap pass. You never know when the line's going to get longer. Even if your child is big enough to ride the ride, let them know if one kid is having like a tantrum or is sleeping and you really don't want to wake them, and make sure the cast member knows you want to rider swap while getting in line. They may actually ask to see the baby or child who cannot ride to prove you aren't lying, because again, a lot of people do try to manipulate the system. Also, get a rider switch pass even during your fast pass uses, especially if you have multiple children. Nobody wants to ride something by themselves if they don't have to. Also, take advantage of less populated areas and things to do. Go play in the play areas. The little ones love that Dumbo play area that I already mentioned. Just go into the Dumbo line for that ride and let your child go wild under an enclosed circus tent. You don't actually have to ride the ride to go play in this area, which is pretty much what we do most of the time. If there is a line to get into the play area, you can kind of maneuver your way up in front of that line and just let them know that you don't plan to ride or are only in line to get into that specific play area. At least we were able to get away with that a few years ago. Whether or not they're monitoring that more recently, I'm not real sure. Another option for a little play area is to go to the Splash Mountain line. There is this small play area that's really great for young kids, like little toddlers and younger kids. It's got a really squishy, soft ground to prevent boo-boos and things. It's not completely enclosed, but it is sheltered from the rain, and kids really like it. So if it starts raining, this is a great area just to sit and relax. You're still going to see the rain behind you and in front of you, but you'll be under a big bridge. We're a family with a lot of little kids, so we always bring an extra change of clothes and flip-flops pretty much everywhere we go around Disney World. One of our favorite places to go is Disney Springs area, and there are some little fountains that kids love to play in. I always like having an extra set of clothes and maybe even flip-flops around just in case we want to play, but we don't want to walk around in sopping wet clothes when we go shop or when we go eat. And when it comes to Disney World, I really don't want them to miss out on any sort of experience that would be fun. So if my kids want to go play in that fountain and get sopping wet, I'm gonna let them, because I know I got my extra change of clothes and I'm prepared. I also bring an extra change of clothes and flip-flops for myself because I too like to get wet on all the water rides, and I like to play in the fountains with my kids. Playing in fountains and getting wet on water rides is a true joy in the middle of a Florida summer. Y'all, it gets super hot. Sometimes I don't even need that change of clothes. I just like to have it as an option. I just like to be prepared. Extra clothes are also good for those unexpected showers that get you soaking wet. By all means, this tip to bring extra clothes is just not feasible for a lot of adults and those with bigger kids, but if you have a stroller and you have the capacity to carry extra things, do consider bringing a change. To save time and effort, we just always kept a specific bag packed and ready in our stroller. Usually our spare clothes were some that we didn't really care that much about. They were some of our older clothes or more casual things, and so we never touched them once they were packed in our stroller bag. We just kept them there unless we needed them. In our stroller, we also kept our ponchos. I used an old clear quilt bag that a quilt was bought in to keep all my clothes and the ponchos. And if it's clear, it's going to go through security much faster. We also bought a Jeep brand double stroller cover, which travels with our stroller at all times in case of rain. It rains very randomly and very frequently in Florida. I'm talking there is no rain in the forecast and it is 100% sunny, and then sure enough, 20 minutes later, it is pouring lightning storm, worst flood you could ever imagine. And then 5 minutes later, it's gone again. So if you have a stroller, pack your stroller cover at all times and have your ponchos with you at all times when you're traveling in the parks. You don't have to feel washed out of your park days. The parks are awesome in the rain because a lot of people actually leave. They flee. We always go to the parks and we stay dry under our jackets and ponchos and rain gear. When people leave the parks, you may have the opportunity to snag some cool fast passes or get in some lines that would typically be a lot longer if it wasn't raining. So I'm not scared of the rain. Now, honestly, when it comes to thunderstorms, I'm much more hesitant to get my family out and will typically stay covered. But if it's just rain, I'm heading for the parks and I'm not going to let it stop me. The next tip is you're going to have your bag searched. So go ahead and get your stuff ready and accessible ahead of time while you're in line. Also, I'd say, half the time or more than half the time, security is going to put you through a metal detector. This takes about 2 seconds and it's really not that big of a hassle, and it's actually a good thing. So if you get singled out of your family, don't worry, don't get offended. This is actually a very good security measure. We actually want more people than not to go through. The next tip involves the Swiss Family Treehouse. It's pretty cool for kids to look at. It's a walk-through attraction, so there's actually no wait. There's no ride that you're waiting in line to see. It's just kind of like a walk-through treehouse. They are interested in looking at all the things, but there's really nowhere to play. It's just looking around. Also, don't underestimate your kids' interest in exploring Tom Sawyer's Island. It's this little bitty island you have to take a raft or a ferry to over there by Thunder Mountain Railroad. It's not crowded, but it does close at 7 p.m. So it closes pretty early compared to other rides. So you just take that short ferry ride and you go explore. There's like a cave and there's an old fort to look at. Kids love it. You also get a very cool view of the Haunted Mansion, which you usually don't get when you're just walking by. Also, consider doing the People Mover in Tomorrowland for a small break from walking. It's a neat little ride-through attraction, and there's usually very little line, and it's a great, small ride sort of thing. My kids love it. Plus, it's covered, so if it's raining, it's easy and fun to do. Now, let's talk about fast passes. Fast passes at some of the parks are considered tiered. This means you can't just book the 3 best rides at any given park. It can be very frustrating, but this is where a good park strategy comes into play, or when park hopping through your vacation is helpful. Don't book these fast passes, which, keep in mind, if you don't remember, fast passes are just passes that help you jump towards the front of the line so you don't have to wait in a huge line for a ride. So keep in mind that don't book fast passes right at park opening. So if you plan to arrive right when the park opens or at rope drop, you don't want to book a fast pass right then at the beginning, because right at the beginning, the lines are going to be short anyway. So instead, book your fast passes an hour or 2 after opening. Although some of the super popular attractions with really long lines may build up lines faster than some of the other attractions. So there are things like the Slinky Dog coaster or Alien Swirling Saucers at Hollywood Studios. Because those are new rides, people are flocking to them right away. So they are going in at park opening with bigger lines. So in cases like that, you may go ahead and use a fast pass closer to opening than, say, at Magic Kingdom for some of those rides. I'm giving you all this advice to be at the parks at park opening. So if the park opens at 9, you're going to want to be there earlier than 9 to get in line. The frustrating thing is a lot of times the cast members will let you in before the official park opening. So this means that at 8:30 they may let you in, which means you actually need to be there at least 45 minutes before the park opens to make sure you take advantage of the real rope drop, regardless of what the hours say. For those who are staying at an official Disney World hotel, you will be able to take advantage of extra magic hours. And these are usually hours right before a park's official opening that take place, or park hours that take place after the park has officially closed. And only the people that are staying on property or at a Disney World resort will be able to go take advantage of these extra magic hours. So let's say you're trying to go to Hollywood Studios. The official opening is at 9 o'clock, but there's also extra magic hours from 8 to 9 for resort guests. If I were you, I would try to be there closer to 7:15 or 7:30, just in case they still let you in a little early. Now, you're less likely to get in early on those days where there are those earlier extra magic hour times, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared if they do let you in. If you're going to go to Magic Kingdom at rope drop or at opening, if I were you, I would head to Peter Pan and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train first thing if you don't have a fast pass and you really want to ride those. Those tend to be the rides with the longest lines. Even at the close of the park, the very end of the day, there can still be long lines. Although the longest line is usually going to be for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Now, if you see a wait time for Seven Dwarfs or Peter Pan or Space Mountain that's only 20 or 30 minutes, get in the line. That's not a long line at all. That's super quick. Don't worry too much. There are going to be lots of fun things you could do in the lines for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Peter Pan. They're actually kind of interactive, so those are short waits and they can be fun for kids. If you get to Magic Kingdom at opening, they have this little opening show that's pretty cute to watch too. Alright, so I don't recommend wasting fast passes on things like Haunted Mansion or Small World. Those are usually walk-ons. That usually means you can walk right on it or walk right in the attraction with very little wait. Now you may have some wait, but again, these waits are going to be minimal, things your kids don't get too bored waiting in. And the lines usually move super fast. They are continuously loading rides. Now, let's say Haunted Mansion line may say 20 minutes, but the line has interactive fun stuff to do and moves quickly. And also the rumor is, if you see the line for Haunted Mansion say 13, the haunted number, that means it's a walk-on. That means you can pretty much go straight in. Little Mermaid has a cute line, and the wait never bothers us for that ride too. There's lots of fun things to look at, and the kids enjoy the line. And in fact, sometimes the line moves so quickly that the kids want to stay and look at some of the little neat screens that they have. Now, while I mentioned not booking your fast passes right at rope drop, you do still want to book them as early as you can, and you can only book one per hour. So if the park opens at 9, you may want your first fast pass to be then at 10, maybe another one at 11, and then maybe 12. Now, once you use them up, you can get more. But then after you use those 3 up, you can only get 1 more at a time after you've used those initial 3. You also can't park hop the fast passes. So for instance, if I'm going to go to opening or rope drop at Hollywood Studios, I can't get a fast pass for the Toy Story ride there and then try to get a few more fast passes at Magic Kingdom later in the day. Now, after I use my 3 allowed fast passes at one park, I can then book more for a different park. Again, just one at a time. It's a pain, and hopefully they change that system soon. Now, keep in mind, fast passes are free and cost you nothing. If you want to ride a specific ride and all the fast passes seem to be booked for the time you want, don't give up hope. Keep checking throughout the day. As people's plans change, they are constantly updating fast passes, and some availability may pop up. There are actually some specific secret times that some rides tend to open up fast passes. So I would research fast pass drops for Flight of Passage. I believe sometimes they open up some extra ones around 1 p.m., or at least about a year ago, that was kind of the word on the street. It may have changed since then. Another hot topic for families is bringing a stroller. Just bring a stroller if your kid can actually fit in a stroller. If they can fit, they aren't too big to use it. My 7-year-old, my 5-year-old, and my 1-year-old all want to ride in the stroller. And I would let my 7-year-old if I had a triple stroller, but right now I only have a double. So I'm fine letting my bigger kids ride in a stroller, and I'm going to keep doing it until it's physically impossible to fit them in there. Kids don't walk as fast, and I'm always worried they're going to get lost. So I love being able to throw them in a stroller, and it actually kind of keeps them contained, and we move faster through crowds. The stroller, though, serves several functions for us. Not just to transport kids, it also holds our extra clothes, our snacks, because we do bring a small ice chest. It holds our ponchos and all the other extras that you don't want to physically carry. Honestly, even when my kids get too big, I swear I may still bring a stroller just for those purposes. You can bring your own stroller, or you can rent one from different companies. I don't like the strollers that you can rent directly from the park. They seem very uncomfortable and might be hard to locate because everyone's stroller looks exactly alike. Plus, the strollers you rent, you have to turn back in before you leave the park. And some of the walking and when my kids are most tired is at the end of the day, just walking in our resort or back to the bus stop. And if you have to turn that stroller in before you leave, you are going to be carrying your small child or dealing with a fussy kid. I used to love it when my youngest daughter fell asleep in the stroller at the end of a park night. She was too little to ride a lot of the big rides, which allowed my husband and I to do several of the kind of the grown-up rides without guilt. We would just parent swap back and forth. So while one parent just relaxes and stays with the sleeping baby, one parent will just take the larger child on a ride. It's awesome, and then you don't have that guilt of not letting the younger baby ride or do something with you. The baby's just sleeping. Same thing if you have one small child. If that child falls asleep in the stroller, then you and your partner can just keep swapping rides. I mean, that's fair game. That's on them for falling asleep. We would do that for like an hour or two sometimes when the park was closing, and our kids would just sleep right through it. It was awesome. Another tip is bring clear plastic bags to get through security quicker. I already mentioned that I use an old quilt bag to put our ponchos in, but just remember, these clear plastic bags are great for multiple things. Not only can you keep stuff in them to get through security faster, you also need a Ziploc bag to keep your phone dry on water rides or during rain. It's just nice to have on hand. I also recommend keeping some sort of purse with a good strap that crosses your body, like a crossbody bag or purse. I've even heard fanny packs are becoming popular again, and you know what? You are on vacation. You spend a lot of money, and if you want to wear a fanny pack, you should be able to wear that fanny pack. Let's be honest, they're practical. Personally, I've had a small Bagalini and another similar style bag that I bought on Amazon or I bought at TJ Maxx. It's kind of a small messenger sort of bag that I can actually take with me on most rides because I don't want to leave any valuables in the stroller. So this allows me to take my phone and possibly wallet or my extra charger with me at all times. Well, that's all the time I have today. Tune in to the next episode where I will continue to review all of the tips I have recorded on my tip sheets. If you are a Midwesterner or you are planning a Branson vacation, feel free to follow along at my other podcast at RoadTrip Branson. Thank you guys again. I'll see you next time for Road Trip WDW.